Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Today we're in the wood shop because we're going to be building a nice wooden book rest. So my wife's birthday is coming up and she's been doing a lot of reading lately, and I've been seeing all of these triangular book rest thingies that you can drop your book on to keep your place. So I figured I'd make her one of those and make it out of some nice hardwood while we're at it. So I went over to the local hardwood dealer and picked up some wood. Kind of stared for a long time as to try to figure out what exactly I wanted to use. I decided on these two species. This is Red Grandis, I don't know how you pronounce that, and Chichin. So both interesting, easy to work with woods, at least from what the people tell me. And really, it just comes down to I really liked the grain pattern on this, and then this was a good contrast and also reasonably affordable. So I was kind of unsure as to what I was actually going to do, and as far as how I was going to make it. And I'm still going to be making this up as I go along. But what I'm going to actually do is probably have this in the middle with this on each side in some strips, or the inverse. I do really like the grain pattern on this, so I think I'm going to try to keep this together. So what I'll probably do is just basically make a single lamination strip. So with this in the middle and then this on the side, and basically just kind of use that as my main stock. So this is the general shape we're going for. I measured some of the books, and it seems like 6 inches for this piece is going to be good. And then I'll make this one 8 inches. That way we've got a little gap underneath. That gap is going to be so you can throw your cell phone or keys or whatever underneath it. No idea about the length of the bottom piece, but we'll figure that out once we have this. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and see how it looks. So yeah, this one, and I'll probably make these a little longer. So this one will be about 7 inches, and this one will be about 9 inches. I know for a fact that I want to use a dado right here where this meets here, and I'm not sure about this. I was initially going to do a dovetail, but pretty much everyone I've seen online, this angle is less than 90, and while I probably could cut a dovetail at less than 90 at a non-right angle, I don't really want to try that. Also, because I'm doing a lamination of a couple different species of wood, it might be too busy. So I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward. I might do I might do a rabbit so that I've got a little more glue area, or I might just do a butt joint and maybe put a dowel through it. We'll see. But that's TBD. This one is going to be a dado because I've got a dado stack, and that'll work out nicely. But let's start by pretty much running that piece of Chichin through the joiner, and then cutting strips out of the other stuff. Alright, time for the glue up. Got my clamps ready to go. Really tried, I could have put some biscuits in here, but I don't really know where the edges are going to be, like where the breaks are going to be. So, worry about that later. Oof. All right. Need to get some water. Probably used a little too much glue, but that's okay. We'll just wipe it off. And we're going to be planing this down anyway, so won't have to worry. Alright, that'll be good for now. Now I'm going to add a crap ton more clamps. Alright, there we go. I don't know if I needed this many clamps, but I have this many clamps, so that's how many clamps I'm using. And for once, I think I can say I have enough. There's extra. Alright, so now I'm going to let that dry overnight, and we'll get back to it tomorrow. Alright, it's a new day. Glue is dry. Took the clamps off. Scraped off some of the excess glue. And now it's time to run it through the planer. Nice and flat. So now I'm going to flip it over, get the other side to match, and then we can start our joinery. There we go, smoothed down in the planer. I did also just trim the edges off with the table saw, just so that I've got a nice straight edge to work with. This is now, I think, about 7.5 inches, maybe a little less. Or maybe 7.25. Yeah, 7.25, which is fine. That's about kind of what I was thinking. So now we're going to cut this board into our pieces. But the first thing we've got to do is I do need to trim these edges off, because you can kind of see this little shadow right there. There is some snipe running right there. That's what happens when it goes through the planer and it doesn't quite, it grabs the first roller, it pinches it down, and then it evens out. So the first couple inches is usually kind of a waste. So that's always something to keep in mind. Some of the nicer planers are better at that. My DeWalt is medium. It really only tends to snipe on the input edge, and some of that is user error. But we're going to cut that off and then divide this into our pieces. And since I don't have a slidey miter saw, we are going to cross cut it on the table saw with the miter gauge. Really thought that piece was going to shoot, didn't you? Alright, so we've got a nice square edge off the table saw. So now we're going to start our layout. I did just put a little scribble down this piece. I did that just so that I can keep the grain orientation correct while I'm doing some other stuff. But like I said, I wanted a 6-inch piece, an 8-inch piece, and then a who knows how much piece. The whole piece right here is 33 inches, and I'm probably not going to need all of that. But it's going to be better to have it a little long and then, cut it than too short. So I'm going to start, and we're going to go an inch longer just in case. So we're going to go with 7 inches to right here. Then we'll go 9 inches, so an inch longer than 8. And I'm going to give it a little bit for the kerf. And then the rest of this will be my base, and we'll see if I use all of it or if I don't. Alright, so let's cut these guys. Alright, and it is important to pay attention because the first cut I cut on the wrong side of the kerf. But that's okay, we are making it a little bit longer just in case. So now if I didn't care all that much, I could just butt these up like this, glue it up and call it a day. Or I could miter them. That might be tricky, but doable. But what I think I might do is kind of do something funky with my dado stack. So I am going to think on that and get back to you. Okay, so I did just decide on using just a bevel, just doing a miter cut. I do want it to be a little bit narrower than 90. The table saw technically maxes out at 45, but this is a little bit past, so it's about 50 degrees. So hopefully that means I'll end up with like, I don't know, like a 70, 80 degree inside corner. But that's kind of the best I could hope for. So gonna use the fence on this one just because these pieces are now a little bit skinny. And yeah, let's cut it. Same sort of thing, but I can't use the miter gauge. Some will say that you're not supposed to use a miter gauge there anyway, because it can pinch, and that is technically correct. But with the bevel of this blade, it would just lift up. It wouldn't get pinched and sucked and, get thrown at you. I'm going to use push block on this one. Yeah, that feels good. Now we've got a nice fit up like that. So I think it's going to be time to glue that guy together. Once I'm done with that, I think I'll try to find some strips of something and put some little slots through there and put something thin in there as kind of a floating tenon. But for now, let's glue this guy up. I suppose before I glue it up, I probably should give these pieces a quick sand. So I've got my sander, my bench cookies, and kind of a medium grit, probably around 100 or so. Might switch out to something finer, but yeah, just gonna do a quick little pass on these guys, glue them up. I just opted for a fresh piece of 120. I did also take this edge to the table saw and just give it a quick little bevel, just to dress it up a little bit. Beauteous. All right, time to glue, and because of the fact that it's not a 90-degree angle, I'm going to use the masking tape trick. It's not really my favorite way of doing a glue up, but it does work pretty well. So I'm going to line those so that's pretty much perfect. Going to take some masking tape. And lay it on the seam. Make sure it's really pressed down in there. And I might just do another longer piece right here, just to make sure. Now we're going to flip this and put our glue in. And I think I mentioned before, normally I just use Titebond 2, but can't find my Titebond 2, so I've got some 3. 3 is, I believe, just a little more waterproof, so not really important for an indoor project like this, but doing something outdoors, it works pretty good. Get some glue into the bottom. This is almost certainly all going to squeeze out. But just want to make sure I got decent coverage before I take care of that. Alright, so now I fold that up. I'm actually going to take another piece of tape and run it from there to there, just to hold a little bit of tension on this. Check my gap right here, and slide that just a little bit more this way. Perfect. And the same thing. Another piece of very twisty masking tape. And just to apply a little bit of pressure right there. So now, I'm going to let that sit and dry, and we'll come back to it tomorrow. Alright, it's the next morning. Time to de-tape this. And yeah, that seems like a pretty strong joint. But we are going to make it stronger. And the other thing I noticed, which was a little unfortunate, you can see there's some checking in this board. This edge was the end of the board, and I really should have trimmed more of that off, but I completely forgot about the checking. It goes about to right there, and so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make this a little bit shorter. I kind of did my measurements and kind of eyeballed some stuff, and we can probably take an inch or so off of this and still be completely fine. And then next time I angle the blade, I will run that bevel again. So yeah, let me just take this over the table saw and trim whatever that is, about 3/4 of an inch off. Light. Yeah, about 3/4. So yeah, I will go set that up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I did want to make a couple cuts so I can add a little extra reinforcement here. So what we're going to do is basically I made a quick and dirty little jig. Just cut a V with approximately the angle for this guy. It's not perfect. Come here. It's not perfect. I've got a little bit of rock, but for the purposes that we're using it, it should be completely fine. So set that up. And make the cuts. Alright, pared down the edge a little bit just to get them to fit better. So now, take these guys out, put a little bit of glue in the hole. Smear it around with this guy since I don't know where my spreader is. Oh, make sure to wipe that off. Put a little glue on that. And we'll just simply stick it in. Maybe I'll give it a couple taps. sure it's all seated all the way. Now the other. All right. And make sure to wipe off my square. This is my cheap one, so I don't really care about it. I do have a nicer one, but that one's plastic. Or at least the rule is steel, but the square is plastic. So now I'm just going to let that sit and dry. And while I do that, I'm going to cut the dado in the base. I've got this guy stacked up with some blocks to get the right angle. And now I'm going to take my bevel gauge and kind of set it to that angle so that I can set the angle of the table saw. Alright, so I've got the table saw arbor at the correct angle, adjusted with the bevel gauge. Now we've got my dado stack. The piece is just a little bit over 3/4 of an inch. So I've got, most of my stack of cutters, minus this one. And that guy is just shy of 3/4 of an inch. And I will be sanding that, so I do want it to be a pretty snug fit. But I am going to take a couple shims and put those in the mix. So I'm just going to install that, and then we're going to run a test piece and see how it fits. Alright, I did another test piece and it seems to work great even without any shims. So no time like the present. I'm going to do the real thing. And there we go. A little bit of tear out, unfortunately, but I can always run this through the planer again, or the joiner, and just take a little bit off of it. But yeah, let's see how she fits. Perfect. That's pretty much exactly what I wanted. So now, all I've got to do, like I said, I'm going to run it through the joiner again. Then we're going to glue it together. Then we're going to sand the pieces and glue it together. So it's all sanded up to 320, and I found my spreader, so it's time to glue her up. So that looks pretty good. And I was even thinking maybe I'll use one of these pieces to add a little extra rigidity to it. Alright, just gotta let it dry, do a little bit more sanding on the edges, and put our finish on. And there we go. Nice and fully finished. Put a couple coats on there. One last thing I might do is flip it over and put some felty feet on it. You could use some rubbery ones too, but I've got a bunch of them somewhere. I just don't know where right now, so I'll go look for those and stick them on. But yeah, there we go. Book holder. And if you were wondering, it works. Well, that's going to be it for today. I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching. So went over to the local Hardwood. Fuck me. Okay, so I just did a whole explanation, but the camera wasn't rolling. So this is the general shape we're going for.